Welcome to Life After, a podcast for women to take you from feeling like you're just surviving to thriving, to creating a life you really love. Expect to discover tips and tricks to get there. Each episode will have actionable steps to empower you to make changes. I started this podcast because I've been through it all, from getting out of a marriage with a narcissist to completely rebuilding my life. And now I'm on a mission to help you too. You can change your life. It's absolutely possible. Hello, 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 and welcome. I'm so glad you're here. In this episode, we are going to talk about rest. Rest. Now, some of you are going to take a deep breath and settle in. And some of you are feeling your entire body contract. And you're probably saying to me out loud, "You're nuts. We don't need any rest." I'm here to tell you that I have resisted rest for so long. I fought the good fight, and then I fought the bad one. And that got me nowhere. It just got me continually going in the wrong direction. I've pushed through and up and around and over and any other possible way you can push to avoid resting in my lifetime. I've always been one of those hardcore, who needs naps? Rest is for when you're dead kind of people. Boy, is this episode going to be eye-opening. After so many illnesses, surgeries, mystery ailments, I have finally surrendered. Now, maybe it's my age, or maybe I've finally gotten some wisdom. Or maybe I'm just too tired to fight it any longer. I don't have so much hubris that I can't say I was wrong. I've been wrong. And maybe there were times in my life, and maybe there are times in your life, that pushing through is a good thing. There are definitely times that we have to move through something and can't stop to smell the proverbial roses, which in this case, we may consider to be resting. During my divorce, during specific times of my divorce, taking a break just wasn't an option. And yet, it was in that process, as you all know, a very long, protracted, almost 10 years, that I realized I couldn't get through the whole thing by pushing and shoving my way forward. I certainly tried early on. When you're facing a mountain, or in my case, maybe the better analogy is an ultra marathon, going through a divorce, you've got to sustain yourself as you go. In those early years, what resting looked like before I surrendered was about every 8 or 10 months, I would be so exhausted and wiped out that I'd just crash. And what that meant was that my kids put me to bed instead of me putting them to bed. They'd tuck me in about 7 o'clock and I would sleep until the next morning. Now, maybe someone would find some humor in this. And yet I tell you that I did this, that this happened as a cautionary tale. I really look back and I don't love this about myself. And I really don't love telling you guys about it either. It doesn't feel good. I was parentifying my children, for one thing, particularly my oldest. And that I pushed so hard that I literally couldn't function. These are not good traits. These are not things that we should aspire to. And they're not parts of my life that I'm proud of. And I'm telling you so that you know, It's okay. These things happen. And I really remember how hard it feels when we have littles to get even a moment to yourself. It's so challenging. I get that. So that inclination to push can be really strong. I just invite you to consider not making the same mistake that I did by parentifying my kids because I felt so stubborn about needing to never stop. Because when we can rest, when we can take time for ourselves and find a way to rejuvenate, even if it's just little bits at a time, we are so much better for ourselves, our families, our work, all the people in our lives that somehow we come into contact with. I really invite you to learn from my mistake, which is in part why I shared it with you, as vulnerable and uncomfortable as it is to do that. And to take from that, to consider the possibility of a little more moderation. I've only come to really understand and accept this in the last few years, mind you. So no matter where you are on this journey, especially if you are one of the people that contracted in the beginning, I hope you're still listening, right? Because I hope that you can take from this some understanding that, what's that old Oprah quote? When we know better, we do better. All right, so the reality is that making this transition can be really tough if you're in a toxic or narcissistic relationship or have recently left one. Because so often when we're in a relationship like that, we feel like we have to be perfectionists in order to stay safe. So just know that if you're in a relationship like that, if you've recently left a relationship like that, even if you're trying to heal and going through something like a divorce with a toxic or narcissistic person, know that sometimes being a perfectionist is a protective factor that we put on ourselves. And that'll help you move through this stage a little more easily. So why do we want to accept rest more? Well, here's a fact. Resting helps us heal. When you've been in a toxic or narcissistic relationship, resting will absolutely help you recover and heal. It's really critical because that healing and recovering will take so much longer when we don't acknowledge and then follow through with the need for rest, right? Resting allows our brain to quiet. And that is the part that becomes so valuable when we are trying to recover from something, right? We rest if we have surgery because it helps our recovery, is just an example. And rest can look like a whole bunch of different things, right? So what do I say when I'm talking about rest? What do I mean? What does that actually look like? Well, so I looked up a definition of it, and rest is ceasing work or movement in order to relax, refresh yourself, or recover strength. Rest does not necessarily have to be just sleep. It can be anything that works towards restoring your nervous system, quieting your brain. So rest can be it can be napping, 100%. It can be sleeping more, making sure you get better sleep at night. It can also mean taking breaks. It can mean meditating. It can mean just, if you're not a big meditator, it can mean just sitting in silence for a few minutes, closing your eyes and just resting your eyes. It can mean going outside and just being. Maybe you go outside and you just sit in a chair. Maybe you take a stroll, not a walk, not exercise, but you just get some light movement. Resting through, or rather, rejuvenation through rest can be really intentionally stretching, going slow, and resting can mean saying no. So, rest isn't really about doing nothing or just more sleep, more napping. It is also about that rejuvenation piece. And when you have that rejuvenation and you're resting and you're doing so intentionally and focusing on it, it's going to help you reset your nervous system, which is going to help with healing and help with recovery. One of the things I've learned is that when we don't push ourselves so far, when we're not pushing, when we prioritize rest, no matter how the ways I just explained are just some examples, our lives really do get easier. They really do. Of course, I'm not saying that we're not busy and that rest should somehow override our responsibilities. I am asking you to think about spaces in your life where you really could stop, breathe, and take a quick minute for yourself. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to chat about some tips on best practices for resting. I'll see you in a minute. Are you finding yourself struggling in a relationship and wondering if you're dealing with a narcissist? You're not alone, and I've got a resource that can help. Get my 5 questions to confirm you're not the problem. This helps you identify the emotions associated with being in a controlling relationship. Just head over to locatecoaching.com/free gift and take the first step toward clarity and confidence in your relationships. Welcome back. Before we get to the tips, I want to ask you, do you feel like you have rest resistance? Try saying that 10 times fast. I've already told you I definitely did. And so, of course, there's no judgment here. There's never any judgment or criticism. I've made every freaking mistake at least twice, if not 3 times over. And if you're really uncomfortable with this episode so far and are resisting or denying that you don't want to have this conversation, I invite you to take a minute and ask yourself these questions. The first is, what about rest feels uncomfortable for me? Right? Where does that come from? And the second is, what do I believe about slowing down? Man, we are such in a hustle culture. Even if you work a 9-to-5 job, we have this hustle culture that indicates that we have to be busy, going, right? So the answers to these questions are going to tell you a lot because they're going to help inform you if your resistance to resting and taking time for yourself and rejuvenating and processing through things is a result of that kind of culture that we live in. Or if you've got some beliefs around resting. And some of those common beliefs, negative beliefs we can have about resting are, I'm lazy if I rest. Things will fall apart. I don't have time. You all know that I have a coach because coaches have coaches. And there was a period of time a few years ago when I really got to a place I couldn't resist this topic any longer. And my homework with my coach, not from my coach, coaches offer you the opportunity to create your own homework. My homework was literally to take 5 or 10 minutes in a week. That's how hard it was for me in the beginning, to take 5 or 10 minutes in a week to just do nothing, to rest, to take a breather. So I am telling you that when I resisted this, I resisted this. And I'm here to tell you that with some intention and some thought and some practice, you can move through this 100%. 100%. Because that was a couple of years ago when I was intentional about it and was really thinking about it and had spent so many years fighting against it. When I was married, I didn't feel safe resting. So if any of this resonates with you, please give yourself some grace and space. We have a right to rest. And if any of those statements I just made about, oh, I'm lazy, things will fall apart, I don't have time, if you felt those in your body, if that really hit you, you absolutely can work on any of those beliefs or others that you might have that you feel are negative towards resting. And again, we're going to come back to this. It's going to help you calm your nervous system. It's going to help you build better habits. It's going to help you move through challenges more easily. And so knowing all those benefits, please, please, please don't feel guilty about resting. When you feel guilty, again, I've totally done this. I've been in all of these places. That's why I can talk about it, because I've been there. When you feel guilty about it, it hinders your effort that you're already putting towards rest. Guilt ruins the reset, right? You're not actually resting if your brain is yelling and screaming at you the whole time to get up and move, to get up and get your stuff done. So chunk rest down into manageable bites that you can start slowly and build upon. Remember, I just told you when I started this process, my coach and I's goal was for me to intentionally focus on getting 5 or 10 or 15 minutes of rest a week. For me to focus in a week to just give myself those extra few minutes. Okay. So here are our tips and tricks for finding time to rest, getting more rest, and getting the most out of the rest that you do. The first one is stop waiting until you're exhausted. I just told you how I used to push so hard that the kids had to put me to bed. My kids had to put me to bed. This is a terrible tactic, I'm telling you. Does not feel good sharing that. I don't recommend it. And man, it certainly was not my finest parenting moment, right? So stop waiting until you are so exhausted that something like this happens to you, that you have no choice but to crash. We live in, that hustle culture. We think that in a hustle culture, we think that being busy is a sign of strength or importance. And the result of that is that, most people only rest when they're forced to. So the thing is, if this is what you tend to do, I'm going to challenge you all a little bit here for a minute, right? Normally I ask for permission for that. When we follow that hustle culture and we're busy, resting when you're forced to rest, that isn't rest. That's collapsing. So if the only time that you are resting is when your body shuts you down, that is not a strategy. That is a warning sign. So getting some practice and learning how to rest, but particularly before we hit a wall, is a skill that we can practice. That's such great news when we can practice something and make a change. All right. So, if like me, you struggle with rest in the beginning, take micro rests. One of the reasons I resisted rest for a long time was because if I tried to take a nap, it was like a 3-hour ordeal, right? I couldn't shut my brain off because I felt guilty. And so whether I took a nap in bed or, reading in a chair or whatever, I couldn't settle in. And I would fight it and fight it and fight it. And finally, after an hour and 90 minutes, I would finally settle in. But because I was so exhausted all the time, I'd fall into a deeper sleep. And then the whole process took 3 or more hours. And I woke up feeling groggy. So anybody else have trouble? Have you had trouble with napping like that in the past or now? Right? So I convinced myself napping isn't an option for me. Well, what I've learned is we don't need 3+ hours. We can take 15 minutes or 5 minutes. Just sit, close your eyes, do some breathing, have a cup of tea, drink an extra glass of water, get off your screen. Just close your eyes to rest them. Taking a few minutes several times a day throughout the day is going to gently rejuvenate you. And for those of you who do this, hiding in the bathroom doesn't count. This is so common for those of us with littles, right? You go in the bathroom, you close the door, and you hide for an extra few minutes because you think that's the only place that your kids will leave you alone. Now, I have to say, while a spa day might be great, those happen fewer and farther between, and they may or may not feel restful to you. That's different for everybody. So build in regular rest for your life so that you're not looking for those bigger events to save you, right? We want to build in some habits and patterns in the space between. If you find that you're struggling to add rest into your routine, then just schedule it like you would any other required part of your day. I've also heard a lot of productivity coaches, pardon me, say that for every hour that we work, we could break down that hour into working for 15 minutes and taking a 10-minute break. Or if you even feel busy, take a 3 or 5-minute break. Even if you only do that a few times a day, those minutes really count. And you don't have to justify how you spend your time. Yes, we're working. Yes, we have responsibilities and kids. You have the right to take breaks during your day. Not only do you have that right, it's a necessary part of our lives to take some breaks during the day. And if this whole idea feels challenging, but particularly if saying no feels challenging, or if you feel like you really have to justify taking a break, building this in, I have a trick for you. One of the things that I learned early on in my divorce was if you tell people, oh, my kids and I are going to the movies on Saturday, other people often do not see a boundary around that. And they'll say, and they'll kind of ignore that that's how you're spending your time, right? So if you're going to go to the movies at 2 and they want to meet you at 1:30, a lot of people think, oh, well, a movie's just, free time, fun time, so I can infringe on that time. So what I learned was to tell people I have an appointment, because no one will infringe on your time when you have an appointment. Now, they don't have to know that my appointment is going to the movies with my kids, right? I have a right, you have a right, we all have a right to structure the time that is ours, which is maybe outside of work hours, the way that we want. So that's a little trick for you. Use if you're struggling creating kind of a boundary around your time, that will help you build in rest and rejuvenation time. Tell people you have an appointment. Okay, my next tip is really to think about, and I hope I planted the seed a couple of minutes ago, but match the type of rest that you take with what you actually need. So, is your body tired? Then taking physical rest, naps, sleeping more is going to be more helpful. Are you overthinking things? Then take a mental rest. How can you get present in your body and quiet the noise in your brain? Are you emotionally drained? Did you have a fight with somebody today and you're just kind of worn out? And you think, I just don't want to do this anymore, right? Then create emotional rest. Put in those boundaries. Give yourself space. Take those breaks. And this one, I think people often don't think about. And I think in part it's because it's so prevalent in our lives right now. And that's, are you overstimulated? My son, he comes home from work sometimes and I'm constantly peppering him with questions. And he's like, I'm overstimulated. And of course, he's in part making a joke. But we can get overstimulated, right? So that means we got to get off our phones. We need quiet. We need peace and space. So think about what you actually need. Honor your body and your brain and your emotional state in the process. And this is going to really boost the benefits of the kind of rest you choose to do. Ultimately, rest is a sign of strength. It's a sign of strength. I hope you really get that after all that we've talked about. It is not weakness. No matter what anybody tells you, no matter who you're following and what influencer out there it is, rest is not a sign of weakness. It allows you to regulate so many areas of your life. And when you feel regulated, your nervous system is calmer. You're not in a constant or consistent state of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And when that happens, it means all of your brain is accessible to you, which gives you more clarity. And when we have more clarity, we make better decisions, right? So when we think of it in those terms, we realize that rest isn't actually going to slow us down. It's actually what allows us to move forward at a steady, strong, consistent pace. I'll leave you with this. I used to rest when I had no other choice. Now I rest so I have choices. If you take nothing else from today, let it be this. You don't have to earn your rest. You need it. Your body needs it, and your life will be better because of it. If this episode hit home, send it to someone you care about or save it for the next time you feel like you're pushing through when you shouldn't. And if you're not already following the podcast, please make sure you do so you don't miss what's coming next. Please know you've got this. One thought, one choice, one action at a time. As we wrap up, here's the thing. I've made every mistake. I've literally been there and done that. It's one step at a time, and you'll get there. There's hope. You've got this. If you're struggling in a relationship and wondering if it might be controlling, you're not alone. Download my free PDF at locatecoaching.com/free gift to help you find clarity and confidence. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you soon.